Hey, what's going on everybody? Yugi504 here, and welcome to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Battle. So, in the last episode, it was, of course, Stardust Dragon versus Stardust Radiance Dragon. Two very good cards going at each other, but this time, we'll be having a three-way battle between three different cards because they all have pretty much do the exact same thing, but there's always a debate in terms of one thing's player preference or which one is better, which one really should you be using and stuff like that. So we have Mystical Space Typhoon versus Nobleman of Extermination versus Night Beam. So let's go and get started. Each of these cards, of course, has pros and cons because no card, again, is perfect in terms of its use. Because even the most OP card will still have things about it that may irritate you from time to time. So we'll be going from, well, anyway, I don't know why I said that, but first off, we have Mystical Space Typhoon, the world-renowned staple of every deck. It is at 3, some people play 3, some people play 2. That all comes down to the player preference right there. But MST has been a staple for God knows how long. I've lost count of the years and formats that MST has been a staple. Its effect is so simple. It's a quick play spell card that allows you to target one spell or trap card on the field and destroy that target. MST has a lot of misconceptions with it. One being that many people think that MST can negate spells and traps, which is just not true. I think the reason people think that is because of continuous trap cards and continuous spell cards. When you activate continuous spell trap cards, you can chain MST to it, destroying it. Some people may think that's actually negating the activation, which is not. It's just stopping the resolution. One of the big things that's going to come from this is, I believe it's how you spell it. Nope. We're going to type in formation and Tinky. I think I was close. It's the Fire Fist. Since they use these type of spells and traps continuous, MST is going to play a big role in it. One such being is Fire Formation Tinky, which, when this card is activated, you can add one Flow 4 or lower Beast Warrior type monster from your deck to the hand. But the card has to resolve before Tinky can actually get the search out. So, if someone activates Fire Formation Tinky, you can then chain MST to it, destroying Tinky. You're not negating the activation, you're just stopping the resolution of the effect. So you can no longer search for your card. It's one of the cool things about MST now. Now, MST, since it's a quick play spell card, can be used on either player's turn. But of course, has to be set to be on your opponent's has to be set to be during your opponent's turn, where you can then use the also famous end phase Space Typhoon, where during your opponent's end phase you can then activate Mystical Space Typhoon and destroy one of your opponent's spells and traps, and they cannot activate anything to respond to this because they just set that card. But they can if they have another card set that they set beforehand, like a couple turns ago. But it's a really nice play. Now, MST has a one big downfall, is the fact that it can be chained to, which is why blind MST is really a bad thing to do with it. But we all do it. We all blind MST because we want to try to get rid of the Solemns. You want to try to get rid of the Mirror Forces and Bomber Trap Holes. We want to get rid of these problematic cards so we can make our plays as safe as we can. And there are a lot of things we can goof up with this because, you got cards like Call the Haunted where you can easily get a single search from it, or a card trooper draw, or daily tokens. You probably can always chain, Compulse, or Gemini Spark, Acre Stage, stuff like that. And there's a lot of things that can happen with MST that you don't necessarily want it to happen. Anyway, next up, we have Nobleman of Extermination. Now, this card's a decent card enough. I do like all three of these cards. I'm not trying to hate on any of them. I'm not trying to say any of these are bad if I do say some negative things about them. But Nobleman of Extermination is a normal spell card that you can destroy and remove from play one face-down spell or trap card from either side of the field. This is pretty cool. If it was a trap card, both players must remove from play all cards in the deck with the same name as it. Now, this is a relatively good card because you can possibly eliminate some threats in back row, like Solemn Brigade, Mirror Force, Torrential, Bottomless. Some of these annoyances that can really prohibit you from from winning the game or making a big push for a game, possibly, or just trying to control the field. Now, one of the ruling about Noblemen of Extermination that some people don't really know is the fact that both players can look at each other's decks. Now, there's a stipulation on this. It's really supposed to be a quick scan just to make sure your opponent's not cheating you. Because, this game is trust factor, it's very trust-based, and you're just trusting in your opponent that your opponent won't cheat you. So, both players look at each other's decks, but like I said, it's supposed to be brief. But some people actually will take about 5 minutes looking through your deck and reading card effects, which I can't stand. I've had it happen to me. If I ever see this card or use this card, I usually just take a look at the deck, skim through it real quick just to make sure, and that's it. But to help prevent it, like let's say you have a solid, like a Mirror Force in your hand and a Mirror Force in the deck. Let's say you have Mirror Force in the hand. I don't know why I say in the deck, even though it's a 2. It's apparently a 3 now in my world. But let's say you hit a Mirror Force and it's in your hand. Now, if that's the case, just reveal Mirror Force in your hand. Just say, hey, I have it in my hand. It's not my deck. That way, you don't have to look through the deck. Another neat thing is you can use this card in decks that don't really run a lot of the staple traps or don't run traps at all, because then you're not really affected by it since you won't be losing any traps and they'll be losing their traps. So it'll kind of hurt your opponent more. But you also have to be careful with it because if you run it in a deck where you're running staple traps, you might end up losing your own traps as well, which is never really good. Now, one thing about Noblemen Extermination is the fact that it can be chained to, just like MST. But unlike MST, the card has to remain face down. So, if you're playing against, let's say, a Skill Drain based deck or a Macrocosmos based deck, Noblemen Extermination on Skill Drain or Macro, while it's face down, of course, your opponent can then chain the card, and now Noblemen Extermination, when it resolves, it has no more targets, and it just goes to the graveyard like nothing really happened. That's a major downside to the card, but nonetheless, it's still a decently good card. And I like the artwork, it's actually pretty cool, that giant sword. Finally, we have Night Beam, which was regarded as like the replacement for MST. It was a godsend. I remember all the hype this card got, and I'm not saying it's a bad card. It's a good card. It's a good card. It really is. But it wasn't like an MST replacement. Night Beam is the normal spell, like Noblemen. Target one set spell or trap card your opponent controls and destroy that target. Your opponent cannot activate the targeted card in response to this card's activation. So pretty much, it's a sort of like it's like Noblemen Extermination plus MST. It's pretty much kind of what it was. They combined the aspects of both worlds and made Night Beam. Now the cool thing about Night Beam is the fact that your opponent can't chain that card to Night Beam's activation. And when this card was coming out, was like revealed, heroes were like super big. Heroes were just having fun pretty much. And everybody knows that Heroes #1 card, Gemini Spark, really wasn't fun to run into because Bottomless, Gen Spark. TT, Lake Trendle, Gen Spark. False, Gen Spark. MST, Gen Spark. It really wasn't fun because it was a chainable card, and Night Beam was, usually sided just to help combat the Gen Spark. It was really annoying, especially with other cards, if you play against a Black Meat deck. Bottomless, Icarus. How you doing? It really wasn't that fun. But there's ways to get around Night Beam, which is really nice. So, let's say, you're playing Macro, since, Macro is like the go-to style of deck right now if you want to combat the meta. So let's say you're playing a Macro deck. You have a set Macrocosmos and let's say a set MST. This would be a lot more easier. Your opponent activates Night Beam on your Macrocosmos. Well, normally you'll be shit out lucky. You're just going, well, there goes my Macro. But what you can actually do is change your MST to Night Beam. And of course, MST does not negate, but in response to that, you can chain Macro to the MST. So therefore, you're not chaining Macro to Night Beam. And the chain resolves backwards, so first off, it's Macro's activating and resolving. Then MST's activating and resolving on Night Beam. And then Night Beam resolves with no target and goes away in the graveyard, or actually now banished in the banished zone, or for all eternity, or until it was over. So it's one big thing to help get rid of Night Beam. Now, in fact, as a normal spell card, you can only activate during your turn. But again, like Extermination, I love the artwork. It really is nice. It's kind of like a shooting game, like one of those like just point and shoot games. Not like Call of Duty and stuff like that, but you know those old like Duck Hunt kind of. Except you don't have the trolling dog. Anyway, out of these 3 cards, which one should you really be using if in your main deck and stuff like that? I'm sure many of y'all know the answer, but I just wanted to do this for fun because talking about these 3 cards is really really fun to do. Out of these 3 cards, you really should be running MST over the other 2. Because MST is a more versatile card. It's a quick play spell card. You can activate during your opponent's turn. It can stop continuous spells and traps, which is really, really nice. Now, I'm not saying these 2 cards are horrifically bad. You should never play them. These 2 other cards, they're still good cards. They're decently good cards. And they probably will have a place in someone else's deck. But in terms of staple status, MST gets the victory in this one. It's just hands down. MST, there's no competition. It's like if someone put the Hulk against a normal human being. If you think the human being's gonna win, just bare fist, you might be wrong. You'll be wrong on that one. But it's just a very, very good card. It's very, very versatile. So anyway, post your thoughts in the comment section below on your preference on these 3 cards. When it comes down to it, it comes down to player's preference. You may not want to run MST. You may want to run Night Beam. It just depends on who you are as a player in this game. So anyway, again, post your comments in the comment section below. And yeah, comment, rate, subscribe, and bye.